Harlem, New York. 11:23 p.m. Friday, October 27, 1939. The back office of Monarch Records reeks of stale whiskey and cheap cologne. Rain hammers against the window in sharp metallic beats. Outside, Lenox Avenue shimmers black under dying streetlights. Inside, cigarette smoke hangs thick around a single desk lamp, casting long shadows across mahogany walls that have witnessed too many dreams die. Arnold Feldman sits behind that desk, drumming his manicured fingers against a contract. He's a producer, not the kind who discovers talent, but the kind who owns it. His cream-colored suit costs more than most Harlem families see in 6 months. His gold watch ticks like a countdown timer. His smile is pure poison. Across from him stands Lila Mae Carter, 24 years old, clutching her worn handbag with trembling hands. She came to collect what she's owed. 3 recording sessions, $200 promised, money that could keep her lights on another month. Feldman doesn't look up from counting his cash. Stacks of small bills, greasy and worn, representing the profits from her voice, the voice Harlem calls liquid gold. He flicks a single $10 bill across the desk. It flutters to the floor near her scuffed heels. "You'll take what I give you, sweetheart," he says, his voice dripping with practiced condescension. "You people should be grateful I even let you in my studio. You people." Those 2 words hang in the smoke-filled air like a noose. Lila's jaw tightens, but she doesn't move. Women who talk back to men like Arnold Feldman end up blacklisted. Or worse. "I recorded 3 songs," she whispers, her voice barely audible above the rain. "We agreed on 200. Feldman finally looks up, his eyes cold as winter steel. "We agreed on whatever I say we agreed on. You want more money? There are other ways to earn it." His gaze travels down her body with the casual cruelty of a man who believes he owns everything he sees. The humiliation burns through her like acid. She bends to pick up the $10 bill, her dignity crumbling with each second she spends on her knees in front of this man. As she reaches the door, Feldman calls out one final insult, a racial slur that cuts through the air like a blade, delivered with the casual malice of someone who has never faced consequences. What Arnold Feldman doesn't know, what he can't possibly know, is that Lila Mae Carter has a protector. A man who built an empire on one simple principle: disrespect is a debt that must always be paid in full. 48 hours later, Feldman will receive a visitor who doesn't knock, the kind who walks in with a .45 caliber negotiation strategy and a reputation that makes grown men check over their shoulders in broad daylight. 72 hours after that meeting, Arnold Feldman will sign a new contract. Not just for Lila, but for every black performer he's ever cheated. He'll hand over $3,000 in cash, apologize on his knees, and then lose 2 fingers on his right hand. The same hand he used to drum dismissively on that desk. By Christmas 1939, Monarch Records will have a new owner. Arnold Feldman will be collecting tickets at a second-rate theater in Newark, his mutilated hand a permanent reminder that some debts can't be negotiated away. The story of how Arnold Feldman lost everything is a warning that history has tried to hide. If you enjoy these deep dives into the underworld, you can support the channel by buying me a coffee using the link in the description. Your support keeps these investigations alive. Now, let's go back to October 28, 1939. In 1939, Harlem's music industry operates as a perfectly legal plantation system. Black voices generate white wealth with mechanical efficiency. The performers who create the sound that makes Harlem famous see pennies while downtown executives pocket dollars. Record labels own the studios, the masters, the distribution networks, and the profit streams. They call them race records, a category designed to segregate black music into separate markets while ensuring money flows in only one direction. Contracts, when they exist at all, are written in predatory language by lawyers who never venture above 96th Street. Most artists cannot afford legal counsel and would not be welcomed in those offices even if they could. Payment arrives late, light, or not at all. Ownership of recordings belongs exclusively to the men who own the microphones, not the souls who sing into them. Monarch Records occupies the middle tier of this exploitative hierarchy, not prestigious enough to compete with major labels, not desperate enough to treat performers fairly. Arnold Feldman built this modest empire on systematic extraction, recording black talent in a converted warehouse on 125th Street and pressing their music for distribution to colored sections of record stores across the Northeast. The operation survives on volume and silence. Feldman signs small-time singers for one-off sessions, pays them fractions of what their performances generate, then buries the numbers so the voices that created them never see royalties. For every performer who refuses his terms, 10 more wait outside his door, willing to accept whatever scraps he offers. Arnold Feldman clawed his way out of a Lower East Side tenement where his immigrant father died in a textile factory accident before Arnold turned 12. The lesson was brutal and permanent. The world devours the weak. By 16, he ran numbers for Irish bookmakers. By 20, he owned recording equipment from a bankrupt studio. By 32, he possessed Monarch Records and considered himself a self-made success story. He wears expensive suits and smokes Cuban cigars and believes his suffering on the way up earned him the right to stand on the necks of anyone below him. Exploitation to Feldman is not a moral question. It is a reward for survival. Business is business. Sentiment is for suckers. Lila Mae Carter arrived in Harlem 3 years earlier with a cardboard suitcase and a voice that made Mississippi church congregations weep. She had sung gospel since childhood, raised in a tradition where music was prayer and prayer was survival. But gospel does not pay rent in Harlem. She works days cleaning apartments for white families in the Bronx and nights singing in basement clubs where the audience is drunk and the pay is whatever the owner feels generous enough to hand over at closing time. She lives in a single room with 2 other women, sleeps on a cot near the window, and sends what little she can spare back home to younger siblings. When Feldman's assistant hears her sing at a club on Lenox Avenue and offers her a recording contract, she thinks her prayers have finally been answered. The recording sessions reveal the gap between art and commerce. Lila stands before the microphone and delivers performances that carry the weight of generations. Her voice, bending notes in ways that make session musicians stop and stare. Behind the control glass, Feldman sits with his accountant, calculating profit margins per unit sold, discussing distribution territories, estimating market saturation points. He hears her talent the way a butcher assesses cattle, measuring value in pounds and cents. When she finishes the 3rd song, exhausted and exhilarated, Feldman nods with the satisfied expression of a man who just acquired inventory below market price. The deal is simple because Feldman designs it that way. $200 for 3 songs. No contract beyond a handshake. No lawyer present because Lila cannot afford one, and Feldman prefers verbal agreements that leave no paper trail. The power imbalance is absolute. Feldman controls studios, distribution, radio connections, and legal resources. Lila possesses only her voice, desperate hope, and naive belief in gentlemen's agreements. October 27th, 11 p.m., Lila climbs the stairs to Feldman's office, expecting to collect her payment and plan her future. She has no idea she's walking into a trap that will change both their lives forever. Arnold Feldman's office is not designed for business. It is designed for submission. Every piece of furniture serves as a calculated psychological weapon. The oversized mahogany desk forces visitors to stand like supplicants before an altar. The elevated leather chair ensures Feldman always looks down on his guests. Gold records hang on the walls like hunting trophies, each one representing a black voice that generated thousands, while the singer who created it now scrubs floors or stands in bread lines. These are not tributes to talent. They are monuments to theft, purchased with stolen royalties from artists who signed their lives away in this very room. Feldman perfected his systematic approach to breaking performers over years of practice. He never refuses payment outright because refusal invites confrontation. Instead, he delays. First meeting becomes second meeting. Second meeting reveals problems with paperwork. Each delay forces the performer to return, to wait, to feel smaller with every visit. The psychology is precise. Break them down gradually until they accept whatever you offer just to escape the humiliation of begging. Tonight, Lila enters this theater of dominance with her shoulders back and her chin up, but the room itself works against her. Feldman makes her wait while he finishes reading a newspaper, makes her wait while he lights a cigar. Waiting is part of the lesson. When he finally acknowledges her presence, his tone carries the casual contempt of a man addressing livestock. He calls her kid sweetheart, never by her name. Distance, depersonalization. If they are not fully human, he does not have to feel anything when he breaks them. The negotiation is not a negotiation. Feldman explains that expenses were higher than anticipated. Studio time cost more. Distribution fees increased. The mathematics are deliberately confusing, designed to overwhelm and exhaust. He slides a single $10 bill across the desk with theatrical slowness. Take it or leave it. Those are your options. Inside, Lila fights two wars. On one side, her dignity, screaming at her to walk out. On the other side, hunger and obligation. Rent due in 3 days. A mother in Mississippi waiting on money for medicine. Every minute she stands there, her pride erodes under the pressure of survival. She hates herself for staying, for asking again, for allowing this man to strip away her humanity piece by piece. Through the half-open door, Feldman's secretary listens. She has seen this routine before. She smirks, enjoying the spectacle. In this office, other people's desperation is entertainment. When Lila insists they had a clear agreement, the secretary laughs under her breath, a cruel sound that confirms the hierarchy. Then comes the slur. Not shouted, but delivered with cold precision, the specific word designed to strip away her humanity and reduce her to something less than human in his eyes. It hangs in the air like poison gas. Not just an insult, but a classification, a declaration that in his world, she is beneath consideration, beneath fairness, beneath even the basic honor of a kept promise. Lila bends to pick up the $10 bill from the floor. The position forces her to her knees in front of this man. The symbolism is not accidental. Feldman designed this moment. She stands, turns, and walks out without another word, because speaking would mean crying, and crying would mean giving him even more satisfaction. By midnight, she walks down Lenox Avenue with $10 in her pocket and the weight of stolen dignity on her shoulders. She could accept this, disappear into the city, find another job. That is the safe choice. Or she could seek justice from the only court that handles cases like this. The shadow court that sits at all hours, presided over by a judge who understands the precise mathematics of disrespect. At 12:47 a.m., Lila stands outside 409 Edgecombe Avenue, the most prestigious address in Harlem. She's about to knock on a door that, once opened, can never be closed again. The apartment at 409 Edgecombe Avenue exists in a different universe from the streets below. Outside, Harlem pulses with chaos and desperation. Sirens wail through the night air. Drunks argue on corners while police sirens echo off tenement walls. The smell of garbage and broken dreams rises from the gutters. Inside, silence reigns like a cathedral. The air carries the scent of expensive pipe tobacco and lemon polish. Books line the walls from floor to ceiling, leather-bound volumes on philosophy, history, and law, arranged with military precision. A grandfather clock ticks in measured beats, counting time in power rather than minutes. Fresh flowers sit in crystal vases. A chess game remains frozen mid-play on a marble table, the pieces positioned in a complex strategy that only one man fully understands. This is not a gangster's lair. This is a courtroom where Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson dispenses his own brand of justice. Leela waits for 2 hours and 17 minutes. Everyone waits for Bumpy Johnson. The waiting is not accidental or disrespectful. It is a filter, a test, a psychological assessment conducted in silence. Those with trivial complaints leave after 30 minutes. Those with petty grievances abandon their cause after an hour. Only those with true desperation or serious business possess the patience to endure. During her wait, Lila watches men in tailored suits come and go, whispering messages that shift money and influence across the city. She clutches her handbag, rehearsing her story, wondering if seeking this audience was wisdom or madness. The waiting measures two critical qualities: desperation and respect. Bumpy studies people through reflections and doorways before he ever speaks to them, analyzing posture, patience, how they handle silence and uncertainty. When she is finally summoned into his study, the man behind the simple mahogany desk surprises her completely. He does not look like the street criminal she imagined. He wears reading glasses and a perfectly pressed suit that costs more than most men earn in 6 months. His movements are economical and precise. When he removes his glasses to clean them, the gesture carries more menace than any raised voice. He speaks softly, listens with an intensity that is more terrifying than shouting. Lila expects him to offer immediate violence, to send men with baseball bats to teach Feldman a lesson. Street justice. Quick and brutal and temporary. Instead, Bumpy operates on a frequency that transcends simple revenge. He explains his philosophy in a voice devoid of emotion, each word measured and final. Violence without intelligence is just noise. Intelligence without violence is just philosophy. Together they are justice. He is not interested in breaking windows or bloodying noses. Those are solutions for children. He is interested in systematic correction, in dismantling the power dynamic that allowed Feldman to believe he could humiliate black talent without consequence. This case stopped being about $200 the moment Lila described the pattern of disrespect. The investigation begins before Lila leaves the building. Bumpy does not guess or assume. He activates an intelligence network that functions more efficiently than any government agency. Maids who clean downtown offices receive instructions to examine financial records left on desks. Bartenders who serve the music industry crowd ask careful questions during late-night conversations. Numbers runners who move through every social class gather fragments of information from musicians, producers, and hangers-on. Every piece of data flows back to 409 Edgecombe Avenue like water into a drain, where Bumpy assembles a complete picture of Arnold Feldman's operation. The discoveries arrive in systematic waves over the next 18 hours. Feldman has cheated 17 black performers over 2 years. The total theft amounts to $8,400, not counting lost royalties and ownership rights that could multiply that figure by 10. Each case follows the identical pattern: Handshake deals, verbal promises, delays that stretch into months, humiliation that forces performers to accept pennies on the dollar just to escape the degradation. This is not impulsive greed. This is industrial-scale exploitation dressed up as legitimate business. The protection assessment reveals complications, but not impossibilities. Feldman pays Police Captain Murphy of the 28th Precinct $300 monthly for immunity from investigation. He boasts about a cousin married to a low-level associate in the Genovese family, enough connection to drop names and imply downtown protection. These are not insurmountable obstacles, but they require precision. Bumpy cannot simply eliminate Feldman without triggering consequences that could destabilize carefully maintained arrangements with law enforcement and organized crime. As Bumpy reviews the intelligence files spread across his desk, his calculation shifts from individual justice to community protection. 17 victims means systematic predation. $8,400 represents organized theft from Harlem's creative community. If Feldman continues to operate without consequence, every other vulture in the music industry will descend on the neighborhood. Disrespect is a contagion. If you do not quarantine it immediately, it spreads until it infects the entire ecosystem. Bumpy decides to perform surgery, not just to retrieve Lila's money, but to leave Feldman as a living warning sign for anyone else watching. October 29, 6:00 p.m., Bumpy receives the final piece of intelligence he needs. Feldman will be alone in his office tonight, counting weekend receipts. The trap is set. The 24 hours before the confrontation unfold with surgical precision. Bumpy Johnson operates like a master strategist dismantling an enemy fortress, removing each defensive layer with calculated efficiency. Protection is not an abstract concept, but a chain of obligations and fears. To reach a man like Arnold Feldman, you do not simply push past his defenses. You systematically eliminate them until he stands exposed and vulnerable, understanding too late that his safety net has evaporated like morning fog. The first link in Feldman's armor is Police Captain Murphy of the 28th Precinct. For 3 years, Murphy has accepted $300 monthly in exchange for selective blindness regarding Feldman's questionable business practices. Illegal bookkeeping, unpaid taxes, and quiet threats all disappear into bureaucratic black holes as long as the envelope arrives punctually. Murphy's arrogance blinds him to his own vulnerabilities until a visitor appears at his office at 9 a.m. On October 29th, the man wears a suit that costs more than Murphy earns in 3 months and carries the quiet authority of someone connected to City Hall at levels where real power lives. No threats are issued explicitly. Instead, the conversation flows through observations about career trajectories, pension security, and the unfortunate tendency of certain police captains to find themselves transferred to precincts where gunfire provides the nightly soundtrack. The visitor mentions, almost casually, Murphy's gambling debts, his mistress in Yonkers, his brother on the force with a fragile reputation. When the 7-minute conversation ends, Murphy understands perfectly. When Feldman calls that afternoon seeking reassurance about an unspecified concern, the captain is suddenly too busy to take his calls. His secretary delivers the message with bureaucratic coldness. Captain Murphy suggests Mr. Feldman handle his business affairs without police involvement going forward. The Genovese connection requires more delicate surgery. Bumpy respects hierarchy and does not approach the family directly. Instead, a mutual acquaintance arranges a chance encounter at a social club on Mulberry Street. 2 men share espresso and discuss nothing of consequence, while the subtext flows beneath every word. The conversation is respectful, businesslike. Bumpy clarifies that this involves disrespect within Harlem's boundaries, not an act of war against their organization. Feldman's cousin married into the family, yes, but marriage does not equal membership. The cousin works construction, not operations. Feldman himself generates no significant revenue for family interests. The Italians, pragmatic businessmen who value stability over protecting a minor associate, agree instantly. If something unfortunate were to happen to Feldman in Harlem, the family would express no interest and file no complaints. The handshakes that end the meeting seal Feldman's isolation. By afternoon, Feldman feels the atmosphere shifting around him like barometric pressure before a storm. Paranoia begins as a whisper and grows to a scream. His regular liquor delivery from a supplier he has used for 5 years fails to arrive. When he calls to complain, the owner apologizes with obvious discomfort and explains that delivery schedules have changed permanently. His cleaning service cancels without explanation. The secretary who witnessed Lila's humiliation calls in sick for 2 consecutive days, her voice tight with fear. Meetings get postponed. Business associates who usually return calls within hours suddenly take days to respond. Phone calls to the precinct result in indefinite hold times. These disruptions seem random in isolation, but form a pattern of systematic abandonment. The ecosystem that supported his predatory operation is withdrawing, leaving him isolated in ways he cannot articulate but definitely feels. While Feldman's world contracts with each unanswered phone call, Bumpy expands his preparation with methodical precision. He commissions Thomas Garrett, a black lawyer from Sugar Hill, to draft a new contract for Monarch Records. The document is a masterpiece of legal retribution, immediate payment of all back wages to 17 performers, plus 20% interest for delayed compensation, transfer of master recordings to the original artists, and establishment of equitable royalty rates going forward. The contract is legally binding and written in language that would survive scrutiny in any court, though Bumpy has no intention of allowing this dispute to reach a judge. The contract transforms violence from criminal assault into business negotiation, revenge into contract enforcement. Weapon selection receives equal attention. Bumpy opens his cabinet and bypasses the smaller caliber pistols he might carry for personal defense. He chooses a .45 caliber automatic, not because he intends to fire it, but because the .45 makes a statement that smaller calibers cannot achieve. The weapon is heavy, industrial, impossible to ignore when placed on a desk between 2 men. It is a psychological tool as much as a physical one, designed to collapse resistance through presence alone. In Bumpy's hands, the gun becomes punctuation mark rather than weapon of chaos. Intelligence gathering confirms Feldman's predictable routine. Every Saturday night, he stays late to count weekend receipts alone in his office. No secretary, no assistant. Just Feldman and his greed, surrounded by cash he believes he earned through superior cunning. His avarice creates his vulnerability. The routine that once protected him from robbery now exposes him to a different kind of accounting. When greed isolates you from witnesses and protection, it becomes your greatest weakness. October 30th, 11:15 p.m. Feldman sits alone in his office, surrounded by cash and contracts, unaware that the building's security guard just received $100 to take a very long coffee break. The office door opens at 11:27 p.m. Without ceremony or sound, Bumpy Johnson materializes in the doorway like a shadow that decided to become solid, his charcoal suit absorbing the dim light until he appears carved from darkness itself. He does not announce himself or explain his presence. The door closes behind him with a soft click that sounds like a vault ceiling shut, trapping both men inside a space that has suddenly transformed from office to courtroom. Feldman looks up from stacks of weekend receipts, annoyance flashing across his face before his brain fully processes the intruder standing between him and the exit. His reaction follows the predictable script of men who have never faced genuine consequences. He rises abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with an ugly screech. His voice climbs with indignant authority, demanding to know who Bumpy thinks he is, threatening to summon police protection, invoking connections to Captain Murphy and distant mob relatives. The words pour out in a cascade of bluster designed to re-establish dominance through volume and intimidation. He reaches for his telephone, prepared to demonstrate power by calling for help that will restore proper order to his domain. Bumpy answers none of it. Silence is his most terrifying weapon. He crosses the room with measured steps, removes a leather document folder from his coat, and places it on Feldman's desk with deliberate care. The contract lands with a soft thump that somehow carries more menace than any shouted threat. Then, he reaches inside his jacket again and sets the .45 caliber automatic beside the folder, positioning it so the barrel points directly at Feldman's midsection. The heavy steel gleams dully under the desk lamp, industrial and absolutely serious. Still no words. The gun speaks its own language, a vocabulary of finality requiring no translation. Feldman's hand freezes on the telephone receiver. He lifts it to his ear and hears only dead silence. The line has been disconnected, though he cannot fathom when or how. His mouth opens to issue more threats, to invoke powerful names, but something in Bumpy's expression stops the words in his throat. The calm certainty in those eyes communicates a simple truth. Every protection Feldman believed he possessed has been systematically dismantled. His bravado collapses like a building with its foundation removed. The threats die unspoken because he suddenly understands they are not merely empty, but dangerous. Bumpy finally speaks, his voice barely above a whisper, forcing Feldman to lean forward to hear. The terms are not negotiable. Restitution for all 17 performers Feldman has cheated over 2 years. $8,400 in stolen wages, plus 20% interest for delayed payment. An additional $3,000 tax for wasting Bumpy's time and disrespecting Harlem's community. Total demand, $12,000. The number lands like a physical blow. Feldman has perhaps $4,000 in cash scattered across his desk. The remainder requires liquidating assets, emptying accounts, dismantling the financial cushion he spent years building through systematic theft. Feldman attempts negotiation with the desperation of a drowning man grasping at debris. He offers partial payment immediately, promises reformed business practices, swears future compliance. His voice cracks as he transitions from negotiation to begging, explaining overhead costs and legitimate financial constraints. Each plea bounces off Bumpy's silence like stones thrown at armored glass. The ultimatum arrives without theatrics, delivered in the same quiet tone that penetrates deeper than shouting ever could. Feldman has 2 choices: sign the contract, arrange full payment within 72 hours, and walk away damaged but breathing. Or refuse, in which case Bumpy leaves him here for the janitor to discover in the morning. The signing becomes a grotesque performance of submission. Feldman's hand shakes so violently he can barely grip the pen. Sweat drips from his forehead onto the contract, smearing ink as he scrawls his signature across multiple pages. He unlocks his safe, adding deeds and jewelry to meet the demand. When he finishes, he slumps back exhausted, believing perhaps that signing ends his ordeal. Feldman thinks signing the contract ends his nightmare. But Bumpy isn't finished. That was for the money, he says, standing up slowly. Now we handle the disrespect. The violence that follows is not chaotic brutality, but surgical correction, administered with the cold efficiency of a medical procedure. Bumpy circles the desk with deliberate steps, his movements economical and purposeful. He does not strike in anger or passion. This is justice, applied with the precision of a surgeon removing diseased tissue. He grabs Feldman's right hand and spreads it flat against the mahogany surface, palm down, fingers extended. Feldman tries to pull away, but finds his wrist held in a grip forged from iron and absolute certainty. The symbolism is deliberate and inescapable. This is the hand that signed exploitative contracts designed to steal from desperate performers. This is the hand that drummed dismissively on the desk while Lila Mae Carter begged for money she had rightfully earned. Bumpy isolates the index and middle fingers, the ones Feldman used most prominently in his theatrical displays of contempt. What follows is calculated destruction applied at specific points to maximize pain while ensuring permanent damage without complete disability. The sound of snapping bone echoes through the empty office like branches breaking under winter ice. Feldman's screams tear through the silence, raw and primal, the sounds of a man discovering that consequences exist beyond his carefully constructed immunity. But the building is empty at this hour. The security guard is 3 blocks away, spending his $100. No one hears. No one responds. His pleas for mercy fall on ears that stopped listening the moment he chose humiliation over fairness. When the correction is complete, Bumpy releases Feldman's mangled hand and steps back, allowing the producer to cradle his ruined fingers against his chest. From his jacket pocket, Bumpy produces a handwritten note on expensive stationery and places it carefully on the desk where Feldman cannot miss it. The message is brief and absolute. The next complaint costs you the whole hand. BJ. The note serves dual purposes. It is both warning and advertisement, ensuring Feldman understands this is not conclusion but probation. It transforms the scene from assault to declaration, from random violence to specific enforcement action. Bumpy does not flee like a common criminal. He straightens his tie, brushes invisible lint from his jacket, and surveys the office with the satisfaction of an accountant who has just balanced difficult books. Feldman remains conscious but broken, slumped in his chair, surrounded by scattered cash and signed contracts that document his surrender. The physical arrangement creates a tableau of poetic justice, a thief surrounded by evidence of his crimes, holding his mutilated hand as receipt for payment rendered. At 3:00 a.m., Feldman drags himself into Harlem Hospital's emergency entrance, his right hand wrapped in a blood-soaked handkerchief. He tells the attending physician he slammed his hand in a car door, a lie so transparent it insults basic intelligence. The doctor, a tired man who has treated gunshot wounds explained as cooking accidents, does not believe the story for even a moment. But in 1939 Harlem, certain injuries arrive with their own code of silence. Questions invite complications that medical professionals learn to avoid. The doctor sets the bones, wraps the hand in plaster, and prescribes pain medication. He asks nothing. Feldman volunteers nothing. Within 48 hours, 17 performers across Harlem receive identical manila envelopes delivered by quiet men who refuse tips and answer no questions. Inside each envelope, cash representing back wages plus 20% interest, calculated to the penny. No explanation accompanies the money because none is necessary. Word travels through the community faster than newspapers could print it. Lila Mae Carter opens her envelope to find $250, her original payment plus $50 extra. A handwritten note accompanies the cash. Your contract has been renegotiated. You work for yourself now. She reads it 3 times, each reading confirming what seems impossible. She owns her voice. The plantation system has been dismantled through intervention she requested, but never fully comprehended. Feldman thinks his punishment is over. He's wrong. Bumpy Johnson doesn't just punish, He makes examples, and examples need to be visible. Bumpy Johnson understands that real punishment is not measured in broken bones, but in ruined futures. The shattered fingers are merely the opening statement in a campaign of systematic destruction that unfolds over 6 months, with the inexorable patience of erosion wearing down stone. What happened in that office was an event. What follows is the complete dismantling of a man's existence, executed with surgical precision through channels that reach every corner of the music industry. The first phase targets Feldman's reputation through whispers deployed like poison through a water supply. A word to a distributor in Chicago. A quiet conversation with a radio station manager in Philadelphia. The message travels through the ecosystem with lethal efficiency. Feldman tried to cheat the wrong people. Feldman disrespected Bumpy Johnson's community. Within weeks, distributors who once carried Monarch records suddenly discover their warehouses are overcrowded. Radio stations find their playlists mysteriously full. Contract renewals get delayed indefinitely. The machinery of exploitation grinds to a halt, not through dramatic confrontation, but through 1,000 small refusals that accumulate into total collapse. His remaining artists depart like water through a cracked vessel, though their exodus flows from invisible hands guiding talent toward legitimate opportunities. By January 1940, a club owner suddenly needs a regular singer and offers Feldman's best performer terms that seem impossibly generous. A legitimate record label expresses unexpected interest in an artist Feldman considered his exclusive property. These opportunities materialize through Bumpy's network, redirecting resources away from predation towards situations where talent might actually prosper. By February, Feldman's roster has evaporated completely, leaving him with expensive recording equipment and empty studios that echo with the ghosts of stolen voices. Financial backing evaporates with equal efficiency. Investors who funded Monarch Records receive anonymous packages containing detailed documentation of creative accounting practices, tax irregularities, and royalty payments that somehow never reached their intended recipients. The evidence arrives without explanation or demand, simply facts arranged to tell an undeniable story. These pragmatic men, who value stability over loyalty, withdraw their capital with ruthless speed. By March 1940, Feldman cannot meet payroll. By April, he defaults on his lease. By spring, Monarch Records exists only as worthless contracts and cautionary whispers. The auction of Monarch's assets draws a sparse crowd of bargain hunters watching an empire dismembered for scrap value. Recording equipment sells for pennies on the dollar. The gold records that once decorated Feldman's office as trophies of theft are purchased by a dealer who melts them down for negligible precious metal content. Feldman watches from the back of the room, his plastered right hand hanging useless, as strangers carve up everything he imagined he had built. By summer, Arnold Feldman works as a ticket collector at the Regal Theater in Newark, a second-rate venue showing movies between vaudeville acts performed by artists whose careers never launched. His broken fingers, healed but permanently damaged, struggle with the ticket punch. Each perforation requires concentration and causes pain that radiates up his forearm. The man who once decided the fates of talented performers now stands in a booth smelling of popcorn and defeat, reduced to the most menial labor the entertainment industry offers. The ripple effect extends far beyond personal destruction. Other record producers and club owners in Harlem quietly revise their business practices without announcement, motivated not by moral awakening, but by calculated self-preservation. Everyone knows what happened to the man who disrespected Bumpy Johnson's people. A new order establishes itself through unspoken understanding, creating an unofficial protection system that functions like invisible infrastructure absolutely essential to Harlem's cultural economy. Lilla Mae Carter becomes a regular at the Apollo Theater, her voice finally reaching audiences who appreciate artistry over profit margins. She owns her masters, controls her creative output, and walks through Harlem with her head high as living proof that talent protected by power can flourish. The legend of Bumpy Johnson grows with each retelling. Protector of the community, the man who made exploitation expensive, the equalizer who drew lines that could not be crossed without consequence. December 1940, a new record producer arrives in Harlem, planning to set up the same exploitative system. He lasts exactly one meeting before deciding to try his luck in Philadelphia instead. The word has spread. In Harlem, respect isn't requested. It's enforced.